Hi, I'm Justin Johns, President and CEO of East Central Energy, and I'm inviting you to ECE's annual meeting on April 18th. Please join us at the Braham Event Center at 5 p.m. to learn more about ECE Fiber, see our electric vehicle showcase, and enjoy some hot appetizers. The business meeting will start at 6 p.m. when we will review 2023 and share director election results. I hope to see you there. Hi, welcome to your co-op's annual meeting.
Hi, everybody. Before we kick things off, I want to extend our thanks to the Braham Event Center volunteers for their invaluable work today. Let's show our appreciation with a round of applause. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. I'm Board Chair Joe Morley. Welcome to East Central Energy's 88th annual meeting. The annual report and agenda for today's meeting are available on our website and are included in the registration bags for those in person. The agenda includes a list of meeting rules and last year's annual meeting minutes. A full recording of this meeting will be available on the website at a future date. With respect to members of all beliefs, we will now open the meeting with an invocation by Ann Erickson, who participates in our Member Resource Council. Ann?
Thank you, Joe. Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight with hearts full of gratitude for our family, our friends, our neighbors. We thank you for each seat that is filled here tonight, for each of the minds and the hearts that fill the presence in this room. We thank you for all that you've given us and for the many blessings in our lives. We thank you for protecting us and for providing the opportunity here to meet, to learn, and to grow. May our interactions be marked by respect and collaboration, fostering an environment of trust and unity. Bless this meeting with your presence. Infuse it with grace and help us see beyond our individual perspectives to the greater good. Guide our discussions and our actions so that we may be filled with a genuine desire to uplift and support one another. As we embark on the business before us, give us patience and let us embrace the foresight for which we plan for the future, the courage and confidence to discover and explore new opportunities, and the wisdom to discern what's right and good. Lord, give us illuminate our path, and may our endeavors reflect your love for all the earth. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Ann. We will now recognize the bravery of those who volunteer to serve our country at home and abroad as part of the United States Armed Services, and honor those who are prisoners of war, those missing in action, and those who have lost their lives. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Bailey Rumreich, one of our distribution service operators. Up until this past February, Bailey served for 6 years as a horizontal construction engineer with the 334th Brigade Engineer Battalion through the National Guard. Easy for me to say. Bailey has now transitioned to inactive ready reserve and remains on call if the Department of Defense needs personnel. Bailey?
Please stand if you are able and move your hat to the front, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated.
Thanks for your service, Bailey. Thank you. As chair of the ECE Board of Directors, my role for today's meeting is to facilitate. It is the same role I take at the monthly board meetings, which all directors attend. As your representatives, we take our role as stewards of your electric cooperative very seriously. We are diligent in our governance of it. Thank you for taking the time to join us tonight. We have 229 members registered for today's meeting. Therefore, I declare that a quorum is present and call the cooperative's 2024 annual meeting to order. You will have an opportunity to ask questions later in the meeting. A list of meeting rules have been printed on the agenda. If there's no objection, the meeting rules will stand approved as printed. Are there any objections? Good, because I wouldn't want to do it. Hearing no objections, the meeting rules will stand approved. Jerry Tweet, Secretary Treasurer, is prepared to read the official notice of the meeting and the certificate of mailing. The notice of the meeting was previously mailed to each member in accordance with the cooperative's bylaws. If there is no objection, the official notice of the meeting and the certificate of mailing will stand approved in accordance with the information mailed to each voting member. Are there any objections? Hearing no objections, the official notice of the meeting and the certificate of mailing will stand approved in accordance with the information mailed to each voting member. Last year's annual meeting minutes are printed inside the agenda. If there's no objection, the minutes will stand approved as written. Are there any objections? Someone's got it. Hearing no objections, the minutes of the meeting will stand approved. We will now move into the executive report portion of the evening. President and CEO Justin Johns will share the cooperative's 2023 activities. Let's welcome Justin to the stage.
Well, good evening, everyone. You know, I theorized that the weather was just crummy enough that there was nothing left to do outside, but nice enough that you could still get here. Is that pretty fair? Well, thanks for taking the time. We really appreciate you coming out. As president and CEO, it's my privilege to lead the next portion of the meeting, share a little bit about what's happened over the last year. But before I do, I'd like to introduce the ECE Board of Directors. They're members just like you, who have stepped up to represent their communities in each of our 6 districts. Directors, would you please stand when your name is called and remain standing until all of you have been introduced. From District 1, we have Greg Kuznicka and Shelley Nault. From District 2, Mike Gaynor and Lonnie Johnson. In District 3, we have Wayne Eller and Rick Olson. District 4 is represented by Joe Morley and Tom Schonecker. District 5 is Linda Lytola and Jerry Tweet. And finally, from District 6, Jim Jessic and Ron Volker. How about a round of applause for our directors? All right, so the annual report is in the packet that you got earlier, and it has a lot of details about 2023. And we'll have time for some questions at the end, but I do want to cover some of the highlights, some of the things that I think are pretty important in the report. So if you'd like to follow along, you can pull your copy out, and you should be able to follow pretty closely. We also have paper and pencils at your tables, so if you have any questions, feel free to write them down, and we'd be happy to try to answer those. So you might be asking yourself, why did we choose an annual theme of Beyond the Blueprint? Well, last year, we went from planning to taking real action on some pretty significant projects and new ventures, including the acquisition of the North Branch Electric Utility, the launch of ECE Fiber, redistricting of our service territory, and much more. Your cooperative had a very busy 2023. To meet the evolving needs of our members, our staff and the board ventured into unknown arenas. They're bringing forth a future-focused strategy and overall improvement, and we're building strong community relationships and hosting a lot of groundbreaking projects. Probably the biggest project of the year in 2023 was the beginning of ECE Fiber. We achieved a major milestone with the launch of the ECE Fiber website on February 1st at 9 a.m. Within the first 48 hours, we had over 2,000 address searches and more than 1,000 folks pre-registered to get service. This enthusiastic reception from our members demonstrates the immense need and the desire for this product, and so we're very excited to bring it. Between awarded grants and community support from local government entities, we secured roughly $21 million of money in 2023 to help fund the project, which has a total cost of over $350 million. And sneak peek, we've already secured another $10 million in grants this year, so we're very excited about the progress on that. Thanks. And we couldn't be more grateful to the governments, local governments, the businesses, and the organizations for their support, and frankly, the community. There's been so many people who have helped a lot of those entities that provide grants understand how badly ECE needs the funding to make this project go. So when it comes to sustainability, I've always said that we need to have a balanced approach. From testifying before the U.S. House of Representatives to pruning potential hazard trees, your cooperative knows that everything we do impacts those around us, including the plants and the animals. One of my favorite projects from the year was when high school shop classes actually built osprey platforms. So if you're familiar with ospreys, they're a pretty majestic raptor, and they build nests at the top of power poles. They look for the highest point to build them, and sometimes that's power poles. And so in 2023, we offered materials to all the schools in our service area, and we asked them if they would like to build osprey platforms. Excuse me. And so we had 9 schools build safe habitats for these remarkable birds. I know when I'm out on the lake, I really enjoy watching them when they fish. They plunge into the water, and it's pretty cool to see. So your cooperative will continue to approach sustainability from a balanced and logical standpoint. We also ramped up our community engagement efforts last year, and as you'll see in their annual report, we reached over 15,000 members across 75 events that we participated in. These events range from parades and community events to campground and highway cleanups. We help with school supply donations for schools that are struggling with the bare necessities, frankly, in the classroom. We helped fund youth tours to DC, and we hosted what we call Coop X in Braham, where students can come and learn, high school students can come and learn about our industry, about the multitude of jobs that exist in our organization. We participate in Arbor Day education and safety presentations at schools with emergency responders, and frankly, just about any organization that wants to learn about electrical safety. It's that important to us. We also participate locally in Meals on Wheels. We have employees who donate time over their lunch to go deliver meals to folks who are subscribed to that. And I'd like to thank you for allowing us to do that. It's an important part of our reputational management to be in the public, to be more than just an electric bill. We're rooted in the community. Healthy communities lead to healthy co-ops, and healthy co-ops lead to healthy communities. On February 3rd, 2023, ECE successfully acquired the municipal electric distribution system from the city of North Branch. This was a milestone event. This transfer affected about 2,000 residents and commercial establishments within the city. And I want to thank the ECE staff. This was a moment where we needed to really lean on the talent and the skill of the employees here to integrate that business into ours. Whether it was the electrical engineering components, the billing, dealing with calls, getting things transferred over, dealing with the legal issues associated with it. It was a big lift for the organization, but one that's going to benefit the cooperative for a long time. So looking ahead, we're very excited about strengthening our relationship within the city of North Branch and welcoming those new members as members of East Central Energy. So following the North Branch acquisition, because of the growth in the organization of membership, we had to look at our director district map. State statute says that they have to be equally distributed in terms of population. And so this redistricting process now guarantees that our board seats have equal representation. We had to use our what's called GIS data, our Geographic Information System, to reestablish our district boundaries. Some townships moved into new districts so that we could even out the population. As of November 1st, that project was completed and the changes were implemented, resulting in a more balanced distribution of our members. We're dedicated to maintaining the financial strength of this organization. Your cooperative needs to benefit the members today and the members in the future as well. Through 2023, the cost of goods and services, if you've been out to eat, if you've been to the grocery store, you know, right? The cost of things has gone up. The same is true for transformers, poles, wires, all the things that we buy to provide service to you, regardless of whether you use a kilowatt hour of electricity or not. And so to ensure transparency and accuracy, the board and staff worked with a third-party entity to do a cost of service study. That cost of service study ensures that we're accurately billing. And this study helped us understand the costs that are associated with serving both our residential and commercial members. And because these rates are meticulously structured and they're meant to cover our financial responsibilities, this study was important. Our diverse 14-county service territory required a rate adjustment. And so the board instituted that rate adjustment, and that started in January of 2024. And I really hope someone asks a question about it when we get done here, because I'd love to talk more about it. This adjustment does ensure that we have the ability to meet our financial obligations and continue to provide reliable service to our membership. So let's talk a little bit about financials. In 2023, ECE's total operating revenue was nearly $138 million. Residential sales, including seasonal sales, cabins, accounts for about 66% of our overall revenue, while commercial and industrial sales represent about 28%. And then other sources of revenue, some of the smaller services, represent about 6%. So how do you spend $138 million? Well, purchase power, our biggest cost, the majority of which we buy from Great River Energy, accounts for nearly 58% of our revenue. I tell employees constantly about 60 cents of every dollar goes to Great River Energy. So when you pay $1 to ECE, 60 cents of it goes to pay for the energy that you consume. And as you can see, about 11% was dedicated to our distribution system, about 8% for the depreciation of existing assets, and then margins. And that's a category that I want to talk to in just a little bit, but it really is what's necessary to meet our loan obligations and continue to access capital to build and replace aging infrastructure. And then administrative services, interest, taxes, and yes, we pay taxes, and member accounts and service equated to a little over 15% of our revenue from last year. So back to margins. Capital credits are what make cooperatives cooperatives. As a member of this cooperative, you help provide capital that allows us to deliver electricity to you. When there's a margin or a profit in the private sector, the cost or that profit, that margin, is allocated to each of you based on the amount of energy that you use over the course of the year. In 2023, we were able to pay out $3.2 million in capital credits to members. And those capital credits are older capital credits that have been retained over the years and then were paid out last year. To date, in our 88-year history, ECE has returned $104.3 million to members. So if you have any questions about this executive report or questions in general, please feel free to make your way to the microphone. I believe we've got a microphone ready, and I would love to have some juicy questions. So we'd like to take some questions that you might have and try to answer those today. It looks like we've got a couple that came in early, so I'll start with those while we get ready here. The question was, how many people participate in off-peak programs? Is it up, down, steady from prior years? So, show of hands, who has a load management device in their home? A water heater, air source heat pump, geothermal heat pump, dual fuel? Yeah, good show of hands, thank you. Those programs, to give you a little bit of a history lesson, they were a component of the build of Coal Creek Station. When coal plants were built, they ran 24/7, 365. They still do for the most part. And UPA at the time and other cooperatives and utilities across the country said to themselves, well, how can we use all of the energy that we have at night? If it's running 24/7, it'd be nice if we could use some energy at night. So storage water heating is kind of I would say the hallmark program related to that, and storage space heating as well. And so what happens is that water heater runs at night, and then it heats up the water heater and there's enough capacity. And so that's where those programs came from, the desire to level out the load curve. Well, surprise, surprise, we still need to do that today. And so those programs continue to be successful for us. We have about 8,500 water heaters on our storage program. And really, a lot of those things have kind of leveled off. We've saturated a lot of the market. And frankly, in the water heater world, we've actually run into some issues with tanks and supplies. And our federal government, in their infinite wisdom, has made some legislation that's made it difficult to continue those programs. So we struggle on, but the programs are successful. We have rates now for electric vehicles. We have rates for air source heat pumps and other devices. And so those programs continue to be valuable. We continue to promote and advertise them, and we have some pretty nice rebates. In fact, you can get a $100 per kW rebate for storage space heating. There's folks in the back that would love to talk to you about that after the meeting's over. The second question that we got was, how many solar installations do we have on our system? How are they working for ECE and the homeowners? Well, this is a pretty big question. It's one that I love to talk about because people are pretty excited about solar. They love the idea of self-generating, and there's something very American about self-sustainability, about taking care of yourself. And I think for a lot of people that's what it's rooted from, as well as concerns about carbon and climate and things of that nature. And so I give a lot of credit to people who are interested. I just really love to talk to them when they get into that conversation. Because the reality is, in the state of Minnesota, we have retail net metering, and so those folks the utility is encumbered with the idea of paying retail for the output of those solar panels. And so we're working with people who are interested, and we love to see when people size it to their own load and provide their own electricity with solar. And we continue to have conversations both in St. Paul and in Washington, D.C. about the topic. A lot of things are still better done at scale and more efficient at scale, but we also respect and appreciate the desire for folks to produce some of their own energy. So we're happy to work with people when they start on that journey. Are there other questions?
First, I'd like to say thank you to the board and to you, Justin, for your leadership this past year. But I have a question for you, Justin, which is, I've noticed ECE has had a number of EV showcases like we see here tonight, as well as a number of articles in the newsletter about electric vehicles. And I'm just wondering, how would you respond to members who might feel that those education efforts are really pushing EVs and might have some concerns about that?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And somehow, somewhere along the way, electric vehicles became a pretty good political football, particularly in I think, rural America. And full disclosure, I drive an electric vehicle. So I guess the question is, who gets to decide whether we drive electric vehicles or not? And I get to make some decisions, the board gets to make some decisions, but I firmly believe that is not one of the decisions we get to make. So what's the cooperative's role in this situation? I think the cooperative's job is to educate the membership and to prepare the cooperative for the possibility that a lot of people might drive electric vehicles. It's no secret when you're in the business of selling a product, selling more of it is better than selling less of it. So certainly the cooperative stands to benefit from the right kind of electric vehicle sales. So that's why we offer programs, whether it's a time of use rate or a storage program where people charge overnight. I guess the big thing we want to do is educate people that if you're going to buy an electric vehicle, we want you to charge it in a way that is beneficial to the overall cooperative. I would never say that ECE is pushing electric vehicles from the perspective of supporting mandates or supporting some sort of, like the California model of eliminating gas vehicles. We would never support that. Just from the standpoint of, I don't think the industry's evolved enough for that yet. That said, I drive an electric vehicle. I've had one for 3 years, 67,000 miles. I put 2 sets of tires on it and a set of windshield wipers. So they're very efficient, they're very economical to drive, but I don't believe they're for everybody yet. Will that day come? Maybe, maybe not. I know you can't, I was just telling someone earlier, you can't hook an ice castle on the back of a pickup truck and drive it to International Falls very easily if that pickup was electric. So there's certainly challenges in all of that, and so we want to be a partner with members as they make decisions about anything electric. We want to be the energy expert for our membership, and we also want to prepare the cooperative, the infrastructure, and all of it for what might come. And so, are we talking about them? Yes. Are we somewhat agnostic? I would say we're relatively agnostic, but we have to prepare for the fact that every time I drive down the freeway, I see more of them. So we want to be prepared for that too. Great question.
Dennis Spencer, speaking of EVs, are you or is the co-op involved with putting the chargers that the state is mandating?
So we're involved in the sense that we provide electricity to them.
You're not putting them in as a service to the members, what I'm trying to say.
Well, so there's a few different scenarios where we have been involved. I'll give you a couple examples. Near North Branch, where I believe you live, there was a development that came up where they were interested in putting in electric technology. So we partnered with them to offer rebates and programs to put storage water heating, air source heat pumps, and then they ran a wire in the garage for a future electric vehicle charging in the house. I think it makes good sense to do something like that for the potential of it. It's also part of our required spending program for electrification and conservation. We've been involved with a few businesses that have been interested in installing electric vehicle charging at their businesses. I'll remind you once again, we're in the business of selling electricity, and so when businesses are looking at that kind of technology, we want to partner with them and be a part of it. I'll tell you a little bit of an inside baseball here. I was actually interested in getting involved in that business, and some of the employees in the organization, through conversation, we came to the understanding that let's focus on what we're good at, which is selling electricity, partnering with people when it makes sense on projects, but not getting in the business of owning charging stations. So we've come to the point, I think, of an equilibrium of how much we're going to get involved, which is not very much, but we're happy to provide electricity to the Tesla supercharger, for example, in North Branch, the DC fast charging at the Holiday in Pine City. There's another one over by the Walmart. So those stations are popping up, and they're going to pop up, whether we want it or not. And so we're trying to develop rates with our G&T, our generation transmission company, Great River Energy, so that those loads don't create a burden for the rest of the membership. So we're involved from that perspective, but we're not in an ownership model of charging stations other than ones at our own buildings. Great question. Anything else? We got one back here, then we'll get you next. Go ahead.
A little more from Oaxaca. Is it true that in order to have a solar farm, the land has got to be 100% paid for?
So the question, if you didn't hear it, I don't have that great hearing, was does the land have to be 100% paid for in order to have a solar farm? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. No, it's not. In fact, if you think about a lot of these solar farms, so ECE is involved in solar. We've got a couple of arrays that we've been involved with. We have power purchase agreements. And the reason we got involved with those were the city of Cambridge was interested in solar, and Grand Casino Hinckley, the Mille Lacs Band, Ojibwe were interested in solar. Both of those projects have a net cost that's cheaper than buying electricity from Great River Energy. So whether you support solar energy or not, I hope you support lower cost energy, right? And so it's a good deal for us. But to your point, to your question, there is no requirement for that, as far as I know. There could be some grants for homeowners that might require that. You have to talk to a tax person about that, but to my knowledge, to put solar in for yourself, a small system, there wouldn't be a requirement. Now for these larger scale, the utility that's installing it may require that, but if you're going to install it for yourself, you certainly, from my understanding, would not have to. We have one up here too. Dave's pretty flexible. Let's hear it for Dave.
I'm Jeff Dick, I St. Township. Just like you addressed the grid vulnerabilities, whether it be natural or terrorism. Are you guys making any plans for that, or do you work with the state or the federal level? Because I don't think they're doing much about it.
So are we talking like substations or?
Yeah, just a way to harden the grid, say from solar flare or terrorist activity, something like that.
Yep. Yep. No, it's a good question. So the question was, what is ECE, if anything, doing to harden the grid from terrorism or natural events or high altitude nuclear detonations? There's all kinds of ways that electromagnetic pulses can be developed that can take out sensitive electronics. I would say this: we don't really have the ability to harden our grid because of the geography of what we have. A Faraday cage, if you're familiar, is really the only way to protect electronics. It's essentially a steel box that blocks the electromagnetic pulses that you're referring to. And just logistically, that's nearly impossible for us. I think what I would think about more, and what we have done, is start to harden our substations from physical terrorism or physical vandalism. We certainly saw a scourge of copper theft years ago, and while not directly terrorism, it certainly is expensive, and it certainly is a pain when someone cuts $3 of copper off of a transformer and does tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage. So we have hardened our substations. Probably not a good place to go into detail of how we've done that, but we have invested in that, and we continue to look at ways we can monitor and pay attention to what's going on in those substations. But to your point, it's a valid concern, and I don't think any utilities have really wrapped their brains around or figured out a way to harden utilities against particularly EMP.
Greg Sorensen, Finlayson. You said you've returned $101 million to members. How have you done that? Give me some examples.
Sure, yeah. Great question. So the question was, we've returned $101 million to members over the years. How have we done that? Well, so in 2023, we had a margin of roughly $10 million. I'll just speak in round numbers to make it simple. A margin of $10 million, okay? And that margin gets allocated to the members who were members in 2023. At some date in the future, the board will make a decision to retire those capital credits, and then they'll give it back to you. Until then, that equity, just like equity in your home or your business or your farm, can be used to borrow, for us, low-cost debt, okay? And so when we put a pole in the ground, with that debt, the money that we borrow, we depreciate that pole over its life. And what that does is it allows the member who lives there that day to pay for their share of the use of that pole, okay? And then at some point, that capital credit, the equity, the margin from last year will be retired, and hopefully new margins, new profits will replace it. And so just like your house might be 50%, your mortgage might be 50% paid off, the cooperative maintains equity at a certain percentage. So so that we have access. So if you go to the bank and you say, well, I need a home equity loan, but I owe 100% of the value of my house, the bank's probably gonna say, well, you need to pay down some of your house before we borrow you money. So similarly, the co-op needs to maintain equity, but we do pay it back. So over the last 88 years, well, probably half of that, because we had to build that equity up and as the co-op started, we've paid back capital credits. So think of it as a kind of a revolving door of margins over many years. We keep about a 25-year backstop. So this year, that $10 million will get allocated, and it will sit in reserve, and we use it to borrow against to maintain the electric system. It's a complicated model, and it's unique. A lot of folks aren't familiar with the idea of leveraging equity, but we're able to secure really low-cost financing from the federal government and from private borrowers because of the financial strength of the organization.
My name is Beth. I'm familiar with another co-op in the state that the members have lost a lot of money because of Bitcoin generators being patched into the system, and I'd love to know that that couldn't happen in our co-op.
Sure, that's a great question. So the question was about Bitcoin, and I'm gonna be honest, I've probably sat through 3 or 4 different speakers about Bitcoin, and I'm not sure I really understand it, except for to say it's extremely energy intensive, okay? So what's happened over time is these Bitcoin miners, they call them, they'll come into a place and they'll set up shop and they'll use a bunch of energy. And where it really gets difficult is when they build large scale facilities that do that. And we haven't had that, we haven't experienced that. And frankly, most of that happens in areas where investor-owned utilities, lower rates tend to be there. So we haven't seen much of that yet, and we monitor energy use on every account. If your electric bill triples next month, we're gonna get an alert that happened. And so we certainly monitor accounts for things like that and keep an eye out for it. But there's a lot of other factors around kind of the idea of data centers, which is a bit of a different conversation about the risk associated with the infrastructure investment that utilities have made. And I'm not sure if that might be what you're referring to, which is, they spend a whole bunch of money building lines and transformers for a data center that then up and leaves 2 years later, and they never recovered their cost on that infrastructure. That's another issue that can come with data centers, which is a little different than Bitcoin mining a lot of times. But both can be risks, so it's a great concern, and I'm glad you brought it up. Any other questions? All right. Well, with that, I would like to take a moment. I think they're still here. We had a couple of Braham's finest here providing, there they are. I just want to take a moment. Law enforcement's had a rough couple of years. I'd like to thank them for their service. With that, I'd like to welcome our chair, Joe Morley, back to the stage.
Great questions. I'm glad Justin was able to answer them for you. Are there any objections to approving the executive report? Hearing no objections, the report will stand approved. There is no old business to be taken up at this time. The cooperative bylaws require all resolutions to be submitted in writing prior to the annual business meeting. We have received no resolutions this year. Is there any new business? Any new business? Any new business? Good. Our thanks to the members who serve on the Credentials and Election Committee. Their job is to oversee the election process and certify the voting results. According to ECE bylaws, directors can be nominated by petition or by the board-approved nominating committee. This year, in voting District 1, only one candidate was nominated by petition for the available seat on the board of directors. The candidate, Greg Vosnicka, was confirmed by the ECE Credential and Election Committee and ECE's legal counsel and was acclaimed director. Voting by ballot was not necessary. Greg, please stand to be recognized. Thank you, Greg. Congrats. Now, Claire Schaff of Parker Sachem Law will announce the result of the elections in Districts 3 and 6. Claire?
Yeah, thank you, Joe. The East Central Energy Credentials and Election Committee met on February 21st and approved Rocky DeVries and Rick Olson as District 3 candidates. A total of 990 votes were counted. Of those ballots, Rocky DeVries received 237 votes, Rick Olson received 753 votes. With the highest number of votes, Rick Olson is elected to the 4-year term in District 3. When you stand up for a second. That's good. The East Central Energy Credentials and Election Committee also approved Jim Jessic and Rick Stevens as District 6 candidates. A total of 1,086 votes were counted. Of those votes, Jim Jessic received 831 votes, and Rick Stevens received 255 votes. With the highest number of votes, Jim Jessic is elected to a 4-year term in District 6. Jim, why don't you stand up? And congratulations and thank you to all the candidates.
Thanks, Claire. Thank you to everyone who made time to attend ECE's 88th annual meeting. We would like to hear your thoughts about today. Please share your comments or suggestions by completing the survey found in your registration bag. We will collect surveys as you exit. There is no further business. The 2024 annual business meeting is adjourned. We will now draw for prizes and bill credits for those in attendance. Thank you very much.